So our first speaker tonight is kind of screeched in after we've been wrangling with the tech, is Omar Green, and we're absolutely delighted to have him here tonight, and he's going to be talking about are we truly diversifying PE and putting the child at the heart of everything that we do in PE. Whilst he's speaking, and during the other speaker sessions tonight, Penny and Karen, who are working backstage, are going to drop some evaluations into the chat. That would be great if you could fill those in. And we do have another Teach Meet running again tomorrow from 4 o'clock, so please do join us then. But I'm aware we're running slightly behind tonight, so I'm going to hand straight back to Omar. So welcome, Omar.
Thank you for having me, Emma. Hi everyone, and yeah, so starting off with, I'm just going to share my screen and then we'll get started. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's coming through, Omar. I'm just about to push it through now. Thank you.
That's up. Can I go? Or...
And you, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, can I start?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, start when you're ready, Omar. Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, the title is Are We Truly Diversifying PE? Putting every child at the heart of PE. So this picture here, some teachers teach content, some teachers teach students. Now, this is a quote that resonates with me quite well because of my personal experiences growing up, and then in my classroom, having to adapt the content that I find when teaching PE to make sure that I teach students and they get the required content needed. So to teach the pupil before I understand them, then you put the content in. Okay, so who am I? Name's Omar Green, qualified teacher and PE lead at a school in North London called Queen Park School. Alongside that, I do professional sports coaching, so I'm a level 3 cricket coach, plus other badges within football and rugby and other sports. I've worked out in Abu Dhabi and also in the UK, delivering PE in 2 completely different contexts. So in the chat, really quickly, if you just jot down what country do you think the person plays cricket for. So yeah, in the chat, give you sort of 10 seconds or so to just jot down what country you feel this player plays cricket for. Okay, so diversity sort of definition within classrooms, we conceptualize diversity as understanding that each student brings unique experiences and strengths added to our classroom. There's exploration and incorporation of these differences to enrich their learning and in our classrooms. So I say classrooms as a teacher, even though a classroom sometimes maybe is say the sports field or the rugby pitch or football pitch. So in practice, as PE teachers, we do value diversity and awareness has risen in certain areas. However, we frequently struggle to implement culturally responsive pedagogies. Culturally responsive pedagogy is defined as by pedagogy that empowers students intellectually, socially, emotionally, politically. To be more in detail of that, it's looking at the whole person, so not just looking at the person within, say, PE context, is to do with all their environment and what they bring to the lesson from outside. This could be their home life or the area they live in, for example. So looking at sort of why, when we're looking at the sort of diversity areas that we may talk about, so we have gender, disability, sort of LGBTQ areas, and then location, socioeconomic status, and religion. Now, within intersectional, within all of that areas is race. So race within that incorporates it, and if you are, say, a person of color, within those areas are more discriminated than a white person. So therefore, I feel is why race is a high important and understanding of that person. Yeah. So to sort of summarize it, if you're not looking and seeing race, you're avoiding and not really acknowledging race, and then in turn you are promoting structural racism within today's society and within the school system. Okay, failure to acknowledge race can lead to labelling of children by the teachers or the self. It's a sort of, if teachers feel that when they see a black person, they may sort of label this child as, say, a problem child or the area, and this then can sort of self-fulfilling prophecy lead to the people sort of labeling themselves in a negative way. They can't see themselves as a good runner or a good athlete, and they sort of bring themselves down, and they might henceforth then lack confidence and self-belief to do the activities that you're trying to get them to do. And then therefore this will lead to them maybe behaving badly, and you then reacting to that, and then constantly getting them into trouble. They're missing out. They then leads to anger issues, and that then leads to diminished social mobility. So they're not looking to then go into social environments or try new activities. So outside of school, they won't want to go and maybe go for the local club to continue their physical activity. They switch off from doing activity, and they lose their physical literacy ability, and it's a rolling effect, as one of the goals of PE is to make sure they are physically active throughout their life. And as a teacher, you're in a good place to enable that, a greater chance for that to happen for that child by doing so. And then this can then lead to them having poor physical health, and then this then can lead to having poor mental health. Particularly in our school, we look at sort of promoting the mental health side and using physical activity as a way to aid that. And if they're not being physical, and as we know, that can lead to say illnesses and so forth, and then this can then detriment to their mental health, and then this may lead back into the classroom work as well. So some strategies around PE, what you can do, which I'll go into more detail in a minute. So school and classroom display boards, adapting the curriculum, resources, lessons, CPDs, educating yourself, current staff, and becoming anti-racist, so really challenging the status quo and questioning those stereotypes, whether it's from a child or from an adult within your school, and sort of reflection on your own biases, which we'll come to later as well. The curriculum in the national PE curriculum for primary school is fairly open, in the sense that therefore you have freedom to adapt activities you teach. So there is sort of opportunities for where you can learn a range of sports. Doesn't have to be football or cricket, the traditional white sports that have been predetermined through our Western lens. There's a range of activities out there that enable you to achieve the learning objectives and outcomes that are required to develop physical development within a child. For example, learning outcomes you could do could be to pass the ball or keep possession, and therefore, if a child's able to keep possession of the ball through passing, say in netball, does it have to be a bounce pass with two hands going forward from it could be they maybe do it with one hand, but they have achieved that goal. And maybe if you ask them why did they do that, well, they might have been watching TV and they saw somebody doing that. So say Sacha Corbyn, and therefore that's how they were doing it. And then also within curriculum, have you considered Ramadan? Now I'm aware, obviously, it's primary school, so some of the age groups you might feel they're not fasting. However, in year 6 in the P class that I taught, and in year 6 they had this 13 of the 20 children are going to be fasting in year 6. And also linked to this is when the time they'll be waking up, and that lack of sleep that is to them. So that could affect even the younger children. So they may be waking up with their parents. And have you considered when to do PE during the day? Is it adaptable in your school, or the activities you might do? So you might do not as load-bearing activities to help and support them. And then pupil voice, so speaking to the children and getting their opinions on the activities that they would like to do. So what do we have to teach tennis to teach, say, the recommended skill of a forehand? We could teach badminton, or table tennis, which the pupils in my school wanted to learn. So some of the techniques that of say forehand and backhand are related to tennis, and you looked at it through that way rather than just teaching tennis. Some non-traditional team activities that you can sort of do that sort of do get the avenue around cultural responsive pedagogy. So hop lacrosse, traditionally it's looked at within, say, the private sector of schools, or sort of white sort of college sport, compared to, particularly in America, compared to, say, the basketball or college football or college baseball, basketball. However, it originates from the Native Americans, so it's linked to the history topics. If you are doing classroom teaching within primary school as well, you can then bring in the Native American side of it as well, and teach them that the original sport was actually called stickball. And then you could teach the kabaddi, which is a traditional Indian game, which we have quite a few Asians within my school from Indian heritage. So we brought that in to teach attacking and defending skills, and sort of how you can correct space and find that movement to win the game. And then tapue, traditional Maori game, which we looked at when we were doing the haka and dance. Even though it's an invasion game, I decided to sort of break it up a little bit on the second P lesson and teach this game. It's an invasion game, had similar skills to netball. So finding space, there's throwing, there's catching, all involved. But was able to teach them this related to New Zealand haka when we did dance, just to sort of break it up slightly. Then looking at resources, so something I consciously do is when I find a resource is to look at the resource and see how I can make it adaptable to my students in a cultural responsive way. So here was a test resource looking at orienteering activity. As you can see, there's only one non-white person on the screen. When I click again now here, you can see there's much more diversity on the screen. From here, there's 3 white people and 5 non-white people, and representation of my class, because there are Japanese and Chinese people in my class. Also there's Egyptians, and she's a Muslim lady, so showing the Muslim girls within my class that yep, swimming is possible to them still. And then dribbling with hands, basketball, actual activity where a peer checklist was done. Here on the left you have a boy dribbling, and you can see different races in the background. And on the right you have a lady here doing basketball dribbling, and she's wearing a hijab to show that that girls can wear their hijabs and play basketball, and it's not to a detriment to them, to make sure they're involved. And in careers in sport, this is a poster that I saw on Twitter, and it was a really great resource. And the other sort of pictures in there was some pictures of, say, Usain Bolt and Serena Williams being professional athletes. And however, when looking at the sports coach aspect, there was no black or Asian person in there, or a female. There's only one picture of a female coach potentially in there. So I wanted to sort of change that to make it more adaptable for my whole school. So on the picture on the right, you can see here there's a Muslim lady who's wearing a hijab as well, who's a soft football coach, to show the girls that they can do football coaching. Then in the middle here is a black coach, cricket coach, coaching black girls and black boys, which is part of the ACES setup, which is in London. If you're nearby in London, you could send your black children to that organisation where they promote sort of black children and get them more into cricket. And with a black coach to show the black children that there's opportunity there. But then lastly, there is a picture here of an Indian coach, and he's in a wheelchair to show some of the children who have disabilities that it's still possible for them. And if you do, likewise, if they do grow up and get injured, and they are unable to walk, that being a disability coach is still viable. Okay, so to sort of round up the sort of topic, this player was Joshua De Silva, West Indies cricket player. He's now, don't know what the answers were in the chat, but hopefully wonder if some of you have got that. If you hadn't thought of the West Indies, this links back to maybe your potential stereotypes or biases of where you think you see a face and where they're from and what their background potentially is. So West Indies cricket is normally tends to be just dealing with black players, and predominantly is black players. However, this guy is a white West Indian, proud white West Indian, and if you didn't think of that, you've got to maybe think, okay, then now when you see, say, a black person or an Asian person, you pigeonhole them into a set of attitudes or ideas or opinions or race of what they're like. So, for instance, if you see a black kid who's fast, you might assume, okay, we'll play him rugby and put him on the wing, when maybe potentially actually he maybe a better position could be, say, fly half. So yeah, final thoughts. The only time colour should be separated is when you do the laundry, and sort of linking it back to teaching as well. If you don't teach or have not even considered the cultural background relevance of your students, then in your physical education curriculum, have you truly met the needs of all your students? So that teach standards 4 and 5, that's just to sort of think about, you might have considered all the other bits of diversity, but have you truly considered cultural background as well? Yeah, so thank you for listening. And these are my contact details if you want to contact me further or reach out to have any discussions with me. This is just a whirlwind of a topic, and I'll be happy to talk in more depth and detail about the area, and I'm happy to discuss any resources as well with yourself. So if there's, thank you for listening. If there's any questions, then happy to answer them now or at a later date.
Omar, thank you so much. That was so interesting, and I loved that final slide about the washing, about the laundry.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be using that one, definitely. But you've got your contact details on there as well, but you do a lot of work with Bain PE, don't you?
Yeah, so I work in conjunction with Bain PE and Black Teachers Connect as well, and ACES, ACES Cricket. So with Bain PE, we work with Dr. Lynch, Dr. Shuan Lynch, and with ACES Cricket, we work with a gentleman called Chevy Green and Ebony, a lady called Ebony and Rayford Brent. So they're both two organisations that promote sort of diversity within sport and PE.
Yeah, I loved all those the sections there on representation as well, and really having a good hard look at both your provision, your environment, the children and the communities that you're serving, and it was a really good heads up as well, especially about older children in primary. As well, because the temptation is to think, well, our children are very little and might not have a great awareness of lots of things, but actually we do teach older children who may be involved in things that do affect their sorry, my phone's just beeping, that do affect their work within PE. So there was so many reminders and heads up in there for me, so thank you, Omar. If people want to get in touch with you, your contact details are there. If they want to look for more resources on Bain PE, they're on Twitter as well, aren't they? And they've got a big website. And on our Discovery website, we'll put this video of yours on there. I'll definitely be recommending it to all of our schools to have a look at. I apologise for the technical hitch at the beginning.
No, it's all right. It's just the way of the world at the moment, I think. Everything's a bit.
Oh no. Every time you think you've mastered a platform, we throw another curveball. Somebody's just said, Omar, can you remind us where the cricketer was from? It's the West Indies, wasn't it?
Yeah, the West Indies, yeah.
Yeah, West Indies. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been so useful. So many great reminders, so many signposts for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Thanks very much, Omar.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye bye.